just trying to learn it, you can study really broadly and study a whole lot of things, but it can be more helpful if you study just a few things more closely. And I think having quizzes will kind of help with that, will help have focused preparation. So don't worry about the quizzes. I'm not going to make them hard. They're basically to be learning tools, just to help have that focused study. And the same thing with the number 5 here, complete 2 sectional examinations. The plan is also to have one exam that covers everything after the first 5 weeks, and then another exam at the end of the course, at the end of the 10 weeks. And again, we can be flexible on this. And if we need to go over something more in depth, or even if we need to go longer with the course or something, and you guys can kind of let me know, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so then we have how the grading will be done. And again, this is just kind of like just to sort of help you guys have a measure of how well everything's going. The average of daily quizzes, 30%, homework and participation, 30%, exams, 40%, 20% each. Okay, so then we have all the lessons here, and you can sort of see those. The plan is to at least cover 2 lessons in this video on Tuesdays. And I'm not sure how long you guys will have here. I'm thinking like maybe at least about an hour or so to meet would probably be good. But I'll ask you guys about that once we finish going through here right quick. So we want to at least go through the first 2, through 2 every time. And then on Thursday, so you see October 15th, you guys can go through lessons 3 and 4. And I'll send you guys the material for that. And I should have videos that you guys can use. So for Tuesday, then what this essentially means is that you'll do the exercises for lessons 1 and 2. And then for Thursday, you'll do the exercises for lessons 3 and 4. So that way it won't be too much at one time, I think. But if we do have time, then we'll cover a few more. We might can cover, for example, lessons 1 through 4 today. And then I want to preview lessons for the next week. And what I mean by that is we see like preview lessons 3 and 4, preview lessons 6 and 7. Basically, I just want to kind of look at it, and you guys can look at the handouts, and we won't really go into like explaining it or lecturing or doing the exercises, just to sort of get an advanced look at what we're going to do next week and kind of start preparing for that. That's how Dr. Sexton, my Hebrew professor, he did it that way, and I felt like it was pretty helpful, is kind of to prepare like that beforehand a little bit. Okay. Some of the weeks we will have more lessons in one day. You'll notice on October 22nd, we have 3 lessons here. Then we're going to do a fall break, and on October 27th and 29th for that week. For the fall break, you guys can either just, totally have a break and not do any Hebrew at all, or you can sort of review the previous lessons, or you can kind of look ahead. And so I'll try and provide you with the material, and you guys can just choose however will best help you in your learning. Because I know that taking a break from everything is a helpful part of learning. And I feel like a lot of times when you take a break from learning something and then you come back later, you actually do better at it. So hopefully that'll, kind of break things up a little bit. Okay, and then it'll pretty much go the same way. More overarchingly, in the first 5 weeks, it'll mostly be just different grammatical things that are not verbs. So you see we have basically things that have to do with pronunciation, and we have nouns and adjectives, the definite article, the way sentences work. And then I moved numerals, the numbers, which you see is lesson 19. I moved it up a little bit to kind of have it, I felt like it could sort of fit better there. And then in lessons kind of 6 through 10, the latter half of the course, we'll basically be looking at verbs more. So we'll have a few more things with like prepositions and stuff. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that's earlier. So yeah, basically in the latter half, we'll be doing verbs. So hopefully this will give you kind of a foundation to build on. And one thing with language, like sometimes it may feel like it doesn't like totally all make sense. I feel like it's almost like a hand where you can study one part of it. Like if you study just one thing of the language, or you can study another thing or just one other or this, you can sort of have some understanding of it, but the language really works best when all the parts are kind of together. Sort of like you can't open a door with just your thumb, but if you have the whole thing, then you can. So it's kind of like if you just have like, this is how just the definite article works. Like it's almost like you just have this as one part of it, but it makes the most sense when it's together. Then you can kind of open the door to understanding and translating and sort of getting it more. So it's all very cumulative. It all works together. Okay, and I think that pretty much covers the syllabus. Are there any questions about this?
That's okay. I just follow it, and I'll see. We'll see what will happen next.
From me, are you saying that in Thursday we will meet again?
No, I'm saying that on Thursday, the plan is for you guys to go through lessons 3 and 4 and exercises on that day. And I'll also try and have videos for you guys to watch on
Yes.
Thursday.
Okay.
So that'll be kind of the plan there. And we can meet on Thursdays as well. But the plan right now is to meet on Tuesday and kind of cover at least Tuesday's lessons. And if we have time, Thursdays as well, and then even kind of previewing the next week. And basically breaking up the lessons is today. And I know it's kind of late for you guys today, so it doesn't have to be on this day necessarily, but
Yeah.
it'll kind of be like the exercises and the written stuff and the practice stuff will be for these 2 lessons. And then for Thursday, it'll be for those 2 lessons. And you guys will do that basically on your own. And I'll have the videos and everything. And then the next week, we can sort of have a quiz over it and talk about it. And yeah, so that's kind of the plan for that.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So Steve, you're gonna send us the material not only on Tuesday but along the week, right? Or maybe you can send us on Thursday, like you just said before, or maybe on any other days. Is that what
Yes.
you mean? Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to try to get you the material in advance.
Yeah.
So hopefully at least by Tuesday of a given week, you should have the material for the whole week.
Yeah.
And I'll really try and do it even more in advance than that. But so you can sort of expect that. Right now, you should have lessons 1 through 6. So that'll cover this week and for next Tuesday.
The material for each week, right?
Yes, sir. So yeah, you should have it pretty well in advance. Okay. Any other questions?
Any other books that maybe we have to read or something?
Really, I think we should be able to do it just with the handouts that I'm sending you. Basically, I'm just making PDF copies of, I can show you the book here.
I'll be back.
Biblical Hebrew Grammar by Bailey and Strange. And this is the textbook that we're using.
Okay.
And I'm just making PDFs of this. And I actually got permission from the author to send the lessons for this course.
Oh, that's great.
So basically, you guys will have like about 30 lessons or so from this, which is a pretty good chunk of the book. And we're going to cover all the way up through verbs. I think it's 33 actually that we're going to do in total. I'll have to check.
Steve, have you sent us that before, or
I've sent you lessons 1 through 6.
Okay.
So you should have the first 6
Yeah.
from the book. And so yeah, the first one is that one there. You guys should have.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the rest of them are just the same. About how long are you guys able to meet for a class? Like I'm thinking like at least about an hour would probably be good.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hold you guys up or make it hard on you because I know that the time difference kind of makes it where we have to meet it. You know, you're meeting at night and I'm meeting in the daytime. So about how long do you guys feel like you can comfortably do for the course?
An hour and a half it would be mine for me.
About an
Yeah,
hour?
what? An hour and a half? I think it's good.
An hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we can be kind of flexible on it. And if you guys need to leave early, then you know that I understand that that's fine. And if you guys have like questions and you want to stay longer, then that's also good. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers everything at the introductory level. So now you guys can pull up your lesson 1, the Hebrew alphabet, the consonants, and I'm gonna read through them. And you guys can just kind of listen to me pronounce them. And so kind of have an example. And then we'll go through them together. And for the exercise, you guys are going to write them out and make sure you pronounce them out loud. And so I'll cover that again in a minute. So the Hebrew alphabet, you can kind of follow along. Aleph,
Aleph,
Bet,
Bet,
Gimel,
Gimel,
Daleth,
Aleph,
He,
He,
Vav,
Vav,
Zayin,
Zayin,
Kef,
Kate,
Heit,
Tef,
Het,
Yod,
Yod,
Kaf,
Kaf,
Lamed,
Lamed,
Mem,
Mem,
Nun,
Nun,
Samek,
Amek,
Ayin,
Ayin,
He,
He,
Sade,
Sadek,
Kof,
Kof,
Resh,
Res,
Sin,
Din,
Shin,
Shin,
Tav.
Tav.
Okay, so I'm going to point out a few of them that can be kind of tricky. You'll notice that some of the letters look very similar. And I don't know, is this backwards to you guys or forwards?
Forward.
Okay, this is forward to you guys. Okay. I'm going to see if you can see this or not. And if not, I can use the board. You see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That one is Vav and this one is Zayin. And these look pretty similar. See that some of the other ones kind of look similar as well. We have, let's see, this one is Heth. And then this one is, you'll notice how they're very, very close. Like the difference is this one, the stem is not connected.
And He, yeah.
Is
Cat
connected.
and yeah. Hey.
And there's probably a few others that look kind of like that as well. Here's another example. We have the final form of Kaf
Kaf.
and the final form of Nun.
Noon.
Nun.
And you see how these look pretty close to each other, and the difference is just this one's longer. So
Yeah.
the reason I point that out is because it can be a little bit confusing sometimes if you're reading one letter can kind of look a little bit like another. So you have to sort of be careful with that. There's a story with Saint Jerome who translated the Bible into Latin,
Yeah.
where he said that the Hebrew was too small for him, like he had a hard time reading it. And in Hebrew translation, sometimes you'll see like there's going to be variant readings of a text. So there might be like, well, this manuscript has this reading, but all these manuscripts have this other reading. And a lot of times you can boil that down to, well, the scribe saw this letter and he thought it was this other letter. And usually it's pretty easy to figure out what happened. So that's just kind of a detail about the Hebrew alphabet, that a few of the letters kind of look similar. Another one is, let's see, we have Daleth, right there.
Daleth,
Left.
Daleth,
And let me see if I can find it. That one. And Resh.
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 Daleth and Resh.
Okay, so I think that kind of covers this. For the pronunciation, there's one or two that are a little bit tricky with pronunciation as well, so I'm going to cover those now. This one is Sade.
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 And you'll notice that in the English spelling of it, off to the right a little bit, this part right here, it has a T at the beginning. So it's this TS sound. So it's kind of like, the problem is in English, we don't really ever do this, to have a TS sound right together. But in the word tsunami, it also has that TS.
Yeah.
So you do pronounce the T. Sade. It's kind of a subtle pronunciation. So, but that's just how that one goes. So it doesn't start with the S. It technically starts with the T sound.
Right.
Okay, another one, Resh. Resh. It's basically equivalent to the R sound, but it is trilled in Hebrew. So it has that ra, ra, ra instead of ra, ra, ra. So the correct pronunciation will be the ra, resh, resh.
Resh.
Resh. Resh.
To have that trilled R. And is that the same in Indonesian? Do you have the trilled R?
Yes. Rolling our tongue a little bit.
Yes. Yes. Okay, excellent. So it's probably pretty much the same pronunciation for that one. One other note about resh is that technically it is aspirated. So you breathe out a little bit when you pronounce it, but you really don't have to. I tried to pronounce it that way with the aspirated resh, and I felt like it made it a little bit harder for me. So I just went with the normal trilled resh, or resh. So basically, all that to say, you can pronounce these kind of and feel okay if you're not like getting it, oh, I'm not getting it perfectly right, you know? Basically, in academic Hebrew, everybody just kind of pronounces it with their own accent. So most people will, instead of saying something like Aleph, they'll just say Aleph. And instead of Resh, they'll just say Resh. So I'm trying to give kind of the best pronunciation example that I can. And I'm basically using what I learned in Spanish to kind of get a closer pronunciation to what it really would have been like, closer to the Arabic languages, which Hebrew is an Arabic language. And probably if you guys you can use your Indonesian experience, because that's going to be closer accent-wise to Hebrew than, for example, English would be. Like English is a totally different language. It's not even really very close. But at least pronunciation-wise, languages like, I would say probably like Indonesian and, for example, like Spanish or Arabic, languages that have more pure vowel sounds and that have like a trilled R, things like that, it's really going to be closer. So you guys basically have a good advantage with the pronunciation already. So that should really work well for you guys. And then lastly, I'll cover just a couple more things here. And I talked about this in the video as well. You'll notice that some of these have two forms. Kaf has two forms. Mem has two forms. This one, Nun, and Pe, and Sade. These ones have two forms, and this last one is just the final form. If it appears at the end of a word, it'll look like that. So that's all there is to that. Okay, and I think this is basically the last thing. These last couple of letters, these second to last ones, we have Sin and Shin.
Shin.
And I'm not sure if you can see that, but can you notice the little dot on the right, on the left side here?
Yeah.
And there, here, there's a dot on the opposite side. That's the only difference. And this is really the same letter in Hebrew, but it can be pronounced sin or shin. And where the dot is, where the dot is what lets you know the difference. And this is one of those little dots that was invented by the Masoretes, which were a group of scribes around the 6th century AD. And they basically tried to preserve how the language was pronounced. Because basically up to that point, everybody just learned how you pronounce Hebrew just by hearing it from the rabbis or from the Pharisees before them or from the priests before that. So that worked really well for a long time, but the Masoretes were concerned that the Jewish people weren't really all together anymore.
Yeah.
And it was possible that you could easily forget how to pronounce everything if you don't have somebody you can listen to. So they put these little dots in there as guides so that we can preserve how you're meant to pronounce these. So that's what all those little dots are underneath.
Okay.
And, have you guys seen or read The Lord of the Rings, the book or the movie?
Yes.
No.
No? Okay.
I-
Okay. Well, in The Lord of the Rings, the author, J.R.R. Tolkien, he has these
Oh.
made-up languages. And you might have seen something about this before where he has the Elvish languages. And
Yeah.
he'll have little dots and things
Okay.
underneath them
I
too.
know.
So he probably got that from Hebrew, the fact that they have these little dots and dashes that they tell you how to pronounce it. So that's just kind of a little extra note. Okay, so to continue through this, and you can follow along in your handout, Hebrew was originally written without vowels. So the alphabet consists only of consonants. So you need to master the alphabet and sort of be familiar with that and how they sound and everything. And fortunately, they all sound the way you pronounce them. Like Cheth sounds like Ch. Beth sounds like B. So it works the same way as the English alphabet. So it's pretty easy to know how you pronounce them if you know the value of the name of the word. There's a note here. The phonetic value of Aleph, the first letter, is silent, while Ayin is barely vocal. It's a slight guttural sound that in academic Hebrew, they don't really pronounce at all. So you can just pronounce that one silently. And what that means is that you'll just pronounce the vowel sound that's associated with it. So if you see the vowel A, you won't go like Ga or Ra or Ba. You'll just say A if it's underneath an Aleph or an Ayin. So those are silent. The Aleph is completely silent, but the Ayin, it has been called a glottal stop. The precise vocalization is somewhat akin to the ing sound at the end of English words. So actually, it's probably similar to your name, really, to Agung, that ung sound. But again, if you want to try and pronounce it with that ing kind of sound, you can totally feel free to do that. But you also can just pronounce it silently. Okay. So again, so we'll go ahead and jump over that. So ayin is basically considered silent. The letter vav, so another note here, has two suggested names as well as two phonetic values. In classical pronunciation, the letter's name is called wal, so that kind of W sound, wal. The phonetic value is W. While in the modern Hebrew, the letter is called vav, with the phonetic value of V. So either pronunciation is acceptable. I prefer vav. I just kind of like it better. And but you can also do wal if you so choose. Okay. The difference in the phonetic value of daleth and tav, I'll point those out for you. Let's see, daleth and tav is this. The daleth is voiced, the, as in the th of then. So you can feel it in your throat. You say the. You can feel it vibrating.
The.
Whereas
Daleth.
the
The.
tav is unvoiced. So you can feel that as well. Like it's the difference of the, it vibrates, versus no vibration. Okay. So that's the difference in pronunciation there. And we already talked about sin. The letters sin and shin are identical, except for the little dot. The sin has the dot on the left side. The shin has the dot on the right side. And originally it was written without that dot. Originally in Hebrew, just all the letters were written all together. There weren't any dots. There weren't even any spaces, if I'm recalling correctly. And so also that will kind of come into play in archaeological stuff, is where they won't have any of these dots. So that's just sort of something to keep in mind. 6 consonants. We're going to go on to talking about the dagesh a little bit, and this is covering part of lesson 2 as well. 6 consonants will take a dot called the dagesh, which we'll talk about in the next one. In the middle of the letter, and it functions to harden the pronunciation of the letter. These letters are, I'll point these out. Beth, Gimel,
Daleth.
Aleph.
Kaf.
He,
He.
Hef.
and Tav.
Ta.
Um,
Can you do it again, please?
Yeah. Let's see if I can get these up here. Okay. Yeah. Beth,
Beth.
Gimel,
Gimel.
Daleth,
Daleth.
Kaf,
Kaf.
Kaf.
He,
He.
Tav.
Ta.
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 Okay, and these are called the Begad Kefet letters.
Yeah.
Begad Kefet, because that's the name that comes from the sound of the 6 letters. So if you were to pronounce it based on the spelling, like if there were a Hebrew word based on this, it would be Begad Kefet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's basically just to help you remember. It's a mnemonic device to learn it.
Okay.
So if you say the Begad Kefet letters, then you know what the letters are, because it's the consonants there. Okay, so those are 6 letters, and they change pronunciation based on the dot. They either have a hard or a soft pronunciation, and we'll go through that. And we have without the dagesh. This one is v.
The.
And with the dagesh is b.
Ba.
So it's harder.
Ba.
The lips come all the way together, and you pronounce it as the hard B. This one is kind of like, there is a difference, but it's very subtle. It's g versus g. So it's basically the same. So they say that it's like the GH in aghast.
Steve, can you repeat again? I just want to make sure the difference of the pronunciation.
Yeah, they're basically the same. So this one is ga versus ga.
Okay.
So really, you can pronounce them the same way. I'm probably pronouncing them the same way, really, even though I'm kind of trying to do it the way that it's instructed here. But it is considered to be the harder one with the dot. Okay, this one is more pronounced. The daleth makes the sound the.
Daleth.
So the dot makes the sound d. As in dog.
Yeah.
So it's either the or d. So, and you can kind of tell how like the is kind of a softer sound than da. So that's kind of the principle of the dagesh. Makes it harder. This one is again similar to the G letter, the gimel, because it doesn't make much of a difference really. This one is pronounced ka,
K.
like cool.
Cool.
This one is pronounced ka, kind of like
K.
kitten.
Kitten.
So again, it's kind of considered to be harder, but it's basically the same. It won't really affect how you pronounce it. And then the last two make a bigger difference. This one is pe, and it is pronounced f,
P.
like the F sound.
Just like F, yes.
Yes, exactly like F. And then this one is pronounced pa, just like
Pa.
P.
Pa.
So either F, pa, or P, pa. So with the dot, it has the harder sound. So you'll notice that like with the harder sounds, well, okay, so with the softer sound, like with beth, for example, we have va or
Va.
ba. So the difference is with va, you can kind of hold that out. You can say va. You can't hold it out with ba. Just ba. And your lips come all the way together with the harder one, ba.
Ba.
With the softer one, you're kind of like using your teeth and going va, va.
Va. For all the letters, for all the six,
Sorry?
for all the letters, you can like drag it with the soft one without the jagged.
Right. Basically, yeah. And that works especially with beth, with va, and with daleth, like the. Again, it's kind of like you're using your teeth, the versus
The.
da. Like you can't hold that one. The same thing with pe. You say fa, and again, it's using your teeth versus pa. You can't really hold that sound out, and your lips come all the way together.
Yes.
And then finally, we have tav. This last one, which is either th, or ta.
And
So it's either the soft, and you use your teeth, you go th, or the hard ta that you can't hold. So that's kind of like the principle behind it. So does that kind of make sense? Do you have any questions about the Begad Kafat letters and the hardening dot, the dagesh?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. The exercise for this lesson is to write each Hebrew letter, including the final forms, 10 times, and to pronounce the name of the letter as you write it. And it notes, although the purpose of the grammar is not to teach conversational Hebrew, the pronunciation of Hebrew, even if it's not totally perfect, is important in the learning process. Writing, hearing, speaking, and seeing Hebrew reinforce each other in helping to learn the language. And really, you can even use kinesthetic stuff, like you can use movement if it helps you. And you can, and for example, we have a song that we used in the video lesson that I'll go through it now. It's Aleph, Beth, and Gimel, Dalet, and Vav, and Zayin, Chet, and Teth, and Yod, and Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pe, and Sa, Te, Kof, and Resh, and Sin, and Shin, and Tav. And that was very helpful for me to learn it. And that's still what I use if I need to remember like a letter in the alphabet. I'll just go through the song really fast. So I definitely can recommend that. And if you can do like even little like hand motions or something, if that is helpful to you, then you can do that. I think that will work probably more so with vocabulary. So like maybe like with the word avad, which is to pass over, you could do something like that, avad. You know, and you can just make up your own stuff, use your own mnemonic devices. So another one can be like, if one letter or word sounds like something else to you, like it might sound like something in English or in Indonesian, or might remind you of something, you can use that association. Like for example, again, with the word avad, to pass over. In English, that sounds like the word over, avad, over. So you can use that to kind of remember. So definitely don't be afraid to use these mnemonic devices. They're very helpful. Songs, movements, word associations. That's what the Begad Kafat is. It's a mnemonic device They're very helpful in learning languages. Okay, so we'll go on to lesson 2. But any other questions about lesson 1, anything that we covered so far? And let me know if you guys are starting to run out of time as well.
Okay.
We want to cover at least 2, and if we have time, we'll go over a little bit more. Okay, so lesson 2, and you guys should have that one as well. We're going to cover the short vowels and the long vowels. And again, just like in the Lord of the Rings thing, it's just these little dots and dashes underneath or above the letter, and all they are the vowel sounds. So you can kind of conceive of them as coming after the letter, like in English, and I presume in Indonesian as well. You have the vowel is written to the left. So for example, we have the sound ba, just ba. So it's written there. In Hebrew, if we had vowels the way that Hebrew has it, it would be like that, ba. So you can sort of think of it that way, as it's kind of like it's to, I'm sorry, the right of it. It's the next sound after it. Now in Hebrew, it's written from right to left, so it would be to the left if it were written that way. And part of the reason that it gives is for why the Masoretes did this. It's like, why didn't they just put sounds and letters and make up new letters for vowels and put them to the left of them? Is they didn't want to disrupt the text of Scripture. They considered it to be a sacred writing, and they didn't want to change anything in it. So they put them underneath and inside and above the letters. So like the dagesh is inside, vowel.
Small
Yes.
mark or something, like
Yes,
dash or just dot or something.
Right. They would just put these little markings, and they decided on what they would mean. So that way they didn't have to change the consonants. They didn't have to change the letters in the Bible. So these are, and do you guys have these handouts in front of you now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll go through these. We have first pathak, which is the a, as in cat. Then segol.
Segol.
Those 3 little dots. The e sound is in met. We have hirek,
Hirek.
which is the I sound, like in pin. The hirek. And I think it's actually pronounced hirek, but you can, like, if it helps you, you can pronounce it hirek, just because the I sound is the sound that it makes. But it is pronounced hirek, I believe. Then we have kametz khatuf. It looks like which is the ah sound, like in top. And it's basically pronounced the same way as the long a, like in father, but it's a little bit shorter. That's what the katuf means. It means hurried. So kametz katuf, kametz hurried. And then last we have kibbutz, which is kind of the U sound, like in bull. So it's not oo, and it's not it's kibbutz. So again, the good thing about these is the name of it matches the sound that it makes, except for hirek, but it's really close. Okay, so any questions about this? Does this make sense?
Yeah. In kametz katuf, so you pronounce it as A or O?
Yeah, it is pronounced like an A. It's pronounced A. The example that it gives is like the O in top. A. That is a little bit confusing, but it's pronounced that way. Basically, the difference, if I'm remembering this right, is it's like if that sound comes before a consonant, then it's the kametz katuf, like a. And if it comes before, if it's the final sound, it's just, it ends on that vowel sound for the syllable, it's the longer one. just ah. So it's kind of like kind of just a difference in either longer or shorter, but it's basically the same sound. And we'll cover that when we get to syllables. They talk about the difference between the kamets katu and the kamets. So I might have that backward, but basically they're pretty much the same sound, but one is a little bit shorter. So good question on that one. Okay. And do you guys have a sound like that in Indonesian, that the kibbutz sound? Or not really?
Maybe we have, but I cannot think one right now.
Okay. I know in English, we don't really have that sound. It's like not really, like it's kind of an unusual sound. So other languages will have sounds probably more like that. So that's kind of a note there. Okay. So now we move on to the long vowels. Okay. So starting at the top, we have kamets.
Kamets.
It's like a T,
Kamet.
pronounced ah as in father. Then we have sede.
Sede.
Kind of like the E in A, pronounced e. And then we also have sede yod.
Sede.
And you'll notice that that's the difference between, let me make sure I have it. Sede is just the two little dots, and sede yod is the two dots with a yod next to it. And they're pronounced the same way. Okay, and that's called a vowel letter. So yod, because it helps you know how to pronounce the vowel sound. Hirek yod is the next one. And that one, it is important that the yod is there, because that's how you know the difference between the normal hirek, which is just a dot pronounced e, hirek, versus the hirek yod, which is pronounced e. So the yod there does make a difference. It lets you know that it's the longer form. And it's kind of like you can remember it because there's more to it, so it's the longer vowel. So it's e instead of it. Okay. So the hirek yod. Then we have the holem, full. And they call it full because it has the whole thing. It has the vowel letter of vav next to it.
Yeah.
So this vav is not pronounced like a v or a w. This is just used as a vowel, basically. And that is kind of the exception to the pointing, the little dots and dashes. There are three vowel letters. Yod, vav, and he are vowel letters. So sometimes those won't make their sounds. They just let you know how to pronounce the vowel sound. Okay, we have holem full, and then we have holem defective, which means it doesn't have the vav, but it's still pronounced o. So pronounced o.
Holem.
And it just has the little dot, and that's how you can tell. It has the dot. It's where the dot would be if it had the vav, but the vav just isn't there. So that's why they call it defective, because it's lacking the vav. And finally, we have shurek, that bottom one there. Shurek, which is the oo sound, like true. Okay, and you'll notice that one also uses the vav, you see, just like the holem. So the difference is it has the dot inside, kind of. It's like to the left of it. So does this kind of make sense? There's little dots, and then they have the yod and the vav, and they let you know how you pronounce it. And that's pretty much all those dots are about. It's just they let you know how to pronounce the words. So I feel like they can seem like strange or like a mystery or something if you never really learned it or something. Like I always thought the little dots and dashes in Tolkien stuff were really interesting. It's like, why is that happening? Why is it like this? So that's all there is to these dots and dashes. So Hebrew grammars vary on exactly what constitutes a vowel. The tables above that we just went through give the vowels in the familiar A, E, I, O, U pattern. So that's the order that you'll notice it goes through. This pattern provides the basics of what is needed at this point.
Okay.
The vowels or pointings, so they're called pointings, I guess because they point out the sound that you're supposed to make. So the vowel pointings. So sometimes we'll call them that. They were probably introduced in the 6th and 7th centuries by the Masoretes, and the older manuscripts of the Bible do not have the vowel signs. So if you're looking at something from, say, the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered at Qumran, they're not going to have these pointing signs or anything. They'll probably all just be written as one long string of text. Okay. So up until the 6th century, it was like that. The full cholem is also called the cholem vav because it has the vav next to it, since the vav is present in the full form. It says that the Hebrew Bible is not consistent in the use of the full cholem and the defective cholem. At times, an expected full cholem may be written defectively, and an expected defective cholem may be written fully. So probably when they were writing this out, it didn't really make much of a difference to them. Like, this is just the way you pronounce it. So it's the same word maybe. So this is just kind of speculating on why it might be that way. So essentially, it just tells you how you pronounce it, and it can be either full or defective. The exercise for this lesson is to write out the vowels with each consonant. So you'll write out Aleph with the Pathak and with all the other short ones, and you say it out loud, and then with the long ones, and you go through the whole thing and do that. So that'll probably take a good few minutes to go through that, but it'll be helpful to sort of get that ingrained of how these vowel sounds work. Okay. And it just notes you can remember that Aleph is silent and the Ayin is either barely vocal or silent. You pronounce it either way. And thus the vowel sound is the only one you pronounce with those. Now, for this lesson, I'd also like you to do, they call it the Heblish exercise, this thing right here at the end. So we can, I'll go through this one with you guys and you can follow along. And also, just as another exercise, just you can write it out and say it, each one, just in full English. So 1, the dog ate the big bone. The dog ate the big bone. This is obviously not Hebrew words, but it's just the Hebrew sounds. Number 2, the cat and the dog sat on the floor.
The cat and the dog
Sat
Yes,
on the floor.
Floor.
How
Yeah.
can you say that? Ah, yeah, the Ayin is O.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, number 3. The baby played with
Played.
the ball.
With the ball. Yeah.
Okay. Number 4. She sells seashells at the seashore.
Seashells at the
Seashells.
seashore.
And she sells seashells at the seashore.
Shore. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And number 5. The faithful are blessed.
Oh, yeah.
Blessed.
Because the P with the dagesh is F, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The P with dagesh is pa, and without is fa. So here it's used like an F.
Yeah.
This is kind of an interesting, it's kind of good you brought that up. It's kind of an interesting development just in the history of language, that the P and the F sound have been closely related pretty much throughout history, where they can almost be considered like two versions of the same letter, really. And that's why in English, sometimes you'll have a PH and that'll mean fa, like in phone. And sometimes you'll have an F, and that'll mean fa, like in free or something. So, and those, I think they go back to Greek, where they have a letter called phi, and so we represent things like that with like a PH. But these are closely related sounds, the P and the F, and we see it all the way back in Hebrew, even, where the same letter can represent both of those. Okay, so do you feel like we have time to go through the next couple of lessons, or do you want to go ahead and kind of wrap things up for today? Where are you guys at?
What do you think, Pak Agung?
I think. Hang on.
Mhm.
Now, Steve, let me ask you a question about the Hiblis.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, actually, what's the goal of us learning this Hiblis? I mean, when we try to pronounce like the dot and the vowel or something like that, and we try to read it in English, does it has not connection? Does it has something with the meaning of the letter when this is in the form of a written Hebrew? You know what I mean?
Basically, the Heblish thing is just for the pronunciation.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That's all that it has to do with. So it's just kind of an exercise to get you used to pronouncing it and get you used to the sounds. And really, some of these Heblish things, like a Hebrew word wouldn't really ever be written that way.
Yeah.
So like, I think, for example, in number 5, where it has faithful, like that tav would normally, I think, have a shiva underneath it.
Yeah.
And like the final word there, blessed, like a Hebrew word would never really appear that way, but
Okay.
it's just to get the pronunciation, to get you kind of practicing it and using it. And actually, I have one other kind of assignment with that. I'd like you to make your own sentence in Hebrew.
Okay.
And just sort of, just so you can kind of be used to working with it and producing the sounds of the language. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Because I think before we enter to this Hebrews exercise, I was kind of, I have this inclination to pronounce, for example, the first one, the Dalet with that kamet, what's the word? What's the power? Is that with the
Comments?
kamets? Yes. I have inclination to pronounce it with A, not O. So how can you distinguish that? Why we can be certain that it will be pronounced O instead of A?
Okay. Basically, if you see the kamets, it's always going to be pronounced ah. Always pronounced ah. So you can think of it like it's always pronounced like an A. And it even kind of looks a little bit like an A, the way it's drawn. So really, it'll never be pronounced like O. It is a little confusing the way that they have it here in the book. But basically, the difference is either just a shorter ah or a longer ah. And really, it's basically the same. And the kametz khatuf will, let's see, it will look like, let me write something down here. It will look, I believe, hang on, I'm sorry. Let me put this down. Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. I think I'm on the one of the other lessons. But yeah, basically, we'll talk about when we get to the syllables. But they're really always pronounced like an A. So if that kind of helps. Okay.
So
Any
it's
other
okay if I pronounce if I read it duck, not dog.
Yeah, that is the way you're supposed to pronounce it. It's dog.
Oh,
yeah.
ah,
So yeah, so you're doing it right. It's pronounced ah. The
Ah.
sound is really the same. It's always ah.
Okay.
So just one is just a little bit shorter, and one is longer. So yeah, and again, I think it's like with these syllables, it's like if it ends with a consonant. Let me see here. I think it's that when it ends with a consonant, that it's the shorter one. And if it doesn't end with a consonant, then it's the longer one. But they're both pronounced ah, both pronounced like a. I'll try and make sure I'm able to answer that question better when we get to that lesson for sure.
Yes.
So that's a good question. Okay, any other questions or anything? Does it kind of make sense so far? Like
Yes.
all this is just pronunciation stuff. It's how you pronounce it. And it's very helpful in understanding the language. So I think it's good to start with that because you can kind of think that, oh, pronunciation doesn't matter at all. It's just, we just want to know what these words mean, and you just translate it into English or into Indonesian. But being able to say it reasonably well is, at least for me, it really allows you to get into the language more. And I feel like it removes a barrier of understanding, that you can understand it a lot better if you can just sort of say it as it's meant to be said. And also, when you're able to pronounce Hebrew, then you can enjoy the poetry and the beauty of the language more. And I'll try and have an example of that maybe next time. I was going to go through a quick proverb, but I think I won't be able to do it right now. But oh wait, no, I think I have it here. So for example, in the Proverbs, a lot of times you can get a lot more of the beauty and the nature of the proverb when you look at it in Hebrew. And this is kind of like, it'll be a little bit down the road. So hopefully at the end of the course, you'd be able to do this yourself with all the things that we're going to cover. Where there's a proverb that says, one who keeps his mouth guards his soul, and the one who opens wide his lips, he gains destruction. In the Hebrew, it's something like, Notzer piv shomer nafsho, posek sapathayiv maketalo. You see, it rhymes. It has a good kind of meter to it. It repeats certain participles, like notzer means keeping, shomer means it also means like guarding or keeping. So they sound similar. They mean similar things. So you get to see a lot of the beauty and just the way that it's written. And it's very helpful for kind of appreciating it, and even it can be helpful for understanding the nature of it. So, right, and you can see the parallelism of it as well, because certain words will be parallel to each other. So like, notzer piv, keeping your mouth, notzer piv, is parallel to posek sofathayiv, opening your lips. And it's easier to see that in the Hebrew. Like I have this one, I don't know if you can see it very well, but yeah, it's a little bit messy. This was this kind of, I did this for my own study at one point, but I have it kind of written above it in English, and probably for the next lesson, I'll see if I can have something prepared to show that a bit better. But that's one of the good things about learning the pronunciation of it. So you really get into the language and really appreciate it. Okay, so if you guys want to go ahead and wrap up now, we can do that. Or if you want to go into the next lesson or two, what do you guys prefer to do? Because again, I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. I want to be mindful about that.
Yeah, I think I prefer we just stop here until lesson 2.
Okay, excellent. That's perfect.
The next time we can go through lesson 3 and 4, something like that. I have something here in mind. Is this Hebrew is still spoken by people right now, or is this ancient Hebrew?
This is ancient Hebrew. This is the Hebrew of the Bible, and all the way up through probably the first few centuries AD.
Yeah.
And the Hebrew Bible has Hebrew from different periods as well. Like, for example, the Hebrew in the book of Job will be more ancient Hebrew than, say, the book of, let's say, Chronicles, maybe.
Chronicles.
Something like that. Job may be the most ancient book in the Hebrew Bible. So some of its Hebrew expressions are more ancient, but all of it is considered Hebrew. There is some Aramaic thrown in at a few places, mostly in the book of Daniel. I think there might be like one other place where there's some Aramaic. But the Hebrew that they speak now in Israel is actually a constructed language. Again, sort of like how Tolkien made up the Elvish languages and stuff. He invented those languages. The Hebrew that's spoken now is also a constructed language, but it's based on biblical Hebrew. And this was all about like 100 years ago or so. Some people who wanted Israel to have a language that they could all speak together, they wanted to speak Hebrew again. They kind of created modern Hebrew.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit simplified. It's in ancient Hebrew we have the pathak, the a sound, and the ah sound. But in modern Hebrew, they just have everything is ah. That's one example of the difference. And I'm not really sure of the other differences. There may be some like grammatical differences, but essentially, as I understand it, they tried to kind of base everything off the Bible. And then when there were new words that the Bible didn't have, like words that had to do with science or technology or things like that, they would just kind of make up words. And sometimes they might make up a word that kind of makes sense or something. And this isn't a real example, but say if they want to talk about an airplane, they might use a word that has to do with flying or with birds or something. So something along those lines, I'm imagining. But yes, this is ancient Hebrew, and modern Hebrew is a more recently constructed language.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? When the first time I learned English, I sing many songs in English, and that's helped me. That really helped me. So I'm thinking now that can I use this way, that way also, when maybe you can give us some songs that sings in Hebrew. So is that can be help us to learn Hebrew, but you just said that this is a different Hebrew. Is there any song sings in ancient Hebrew still now?
This is kind of an interesting point, and definitely yes, you can use singing to learn ancient Hebrew, just like we did with the alphabet. You can use it for verses or for psalms. I believe in modern Hebrew that at bar mitzvahs and when you're trying to like sort of come of age as a Hebrew boy, you will recite passages of scripture, and sometimes they'll even sing, and they'll just like make up a tune right there, and so like sing through a passage of scripture. I believe that's right. So yes, and actually the a lot of the little markings in the Hebrew Bible are also intonation markings. So like it's meant to be chanted or sung. And so a lot of the markings, and we only cover the vowel signs, but there are some other markings, and it may be that the vowel signs play into it. And just to be honest, I haven't really learned the singing aspect of the markings, but they're called intonation markings. And they let you know to sing higher or lower, so that you can all kind of be on the same page if you're going to be chanting or singing Hebrew together. But yeah, definitely, I highly recommend, and I'll even try to have some like sort of like really short memory verses, you know, and for you to use your own songs. And I may try and find some songs that we can use together, so that we can all kind of have the same one. But yeah, definitely use music to try and understand. It's a very helpful language learning technique. And And that's a good suggestion. And I'll try to look into that and see if we can have some of
Thank you.
those.
Yes. From me, again, I really appreciate this, and I just want to clarify that you want us to, as a homework, you want us to construct a sentence based on like a heap list, the one that we just had.
Yes. I'd like you to go through the Heblish exercises and just say them out loud and write them out as they would be in English. And then I want you to construct one Heblish sentence yourself, so you can kind of practice using the vowel signs and the consonants together.
When do you want us to send it to you by?
You can send it to me by next week, by next Tuesday. And basically, I'd like you to just do the exercises at the end of the chapters. So go back and take a look at those and just make sure that you're writing them and that you're saying the sound that the letter makes. So, okay, so, and that'll be most helpful. So you'll go through the alphabet and you'll say like Aleph, Beth, Gimel, and you'll write them out. And then with the vowel sounds, the exercise there is to write out each consonant with each vowel. So there you'll go like ba, ba, be, that kind of thing as you're writing it out. And and then the Heblish thing is almost like putting it all together and using it in a more meaningful way to combine the sounds and everything.
Yes.
Okay. And then for Thursday, I'm going to try to have the videos out ready for you at least by Thursday. I already have lesson 3 ready, so you can take a look at that. Basically, you're just going to go through the handout and complete the exercises at the end.
Sure.
And yeah, that's pretty much what you'll do there. And there's a few Heblish things there as well. And then you'll do lesson 4 as well. So Thursday, lessons 3 and 4, you'll do those on your own, and I'll try to have the videos for you, and you'll do the exercises.
Yes.
Okay. And for Tuesday, I'm planning to have a quiz over the alphabet, and I'll have a few questions about the other lessons as well. But again, it'll be pretty easy, but you will need to know the whole alphabet. So try to have that one down. And so we'll also cover some of the vowel sounds and the dagesh, and the lesson 4 material will be the guttural, quiescent, and vowel letters. And again, don't worry too much about them, but just so that you'll be kind of have focused study and have something that will help you measure your progress.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions or anything you want to talk about?
I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent.
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. I'm really excited about the class, and I'm glad I have this opportunity, and this is great. And I love Hebrew so much, and it's been a really great blessing for me to be able to study it. So I'm really glad to get to share it, and I hope that the Lord blesses you guys with your willingness to learn, and He just blesses you with this language as well.
Amen. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
This is really
Thank
blessing
you,
for
Steve.
us.
This is a very good opportunity for me, for us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll see you guys next week.
See
Yes.
you next week. Bye.
Good night. Good morning.
Good night and good morning.
Bye-bye. Thank you.